What's up, nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Big Johnny G for Two Gun Pixel presents Legendary Gaming. Alright, so thank you very much everyone for joining me here for Midday Monologue Monday. I love getting out and doing these. It's so much fun, it really is. So now, for today's Midday Monologue Monday, we're having sort of a think tank session here. Because I definitely want to know what your ideas, your concepts, your thoughts on what my thought definitely is. So today, as I said, we're going to be doing this sort of think tank thing. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to bandy some ideas back and forth, my friends. But what ideas am I talking about? What are we going to be discussing? We're going to be discussing something tiny. Something very tiny, but at the same time, quite epic. That's right, Gameland Games has been coming out with a series of tiny epic games that have more or less been doing pretty awesome. We all have our favorites between the whole series, but they've been doing good. They've been coming out regularly with both new tiny epic material, as well as the occasional expansion for existing material that's already out, and maybe even on your shelf. But where can they end? Where is this ceiling that they are going to hit with concepts and ideas? I don't know where it is. I have a feeling they're not going to be hitting it for a while, because there certainly are a lot of themes, a lot of genres, a lot of ideas and concepts that can be brought to this gaming table through the Tiny Epic series. So they have Tiny Epic Galaxies, Tiny Epic Quest, Tiny Epic Kingdoms, Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, Tiny Epic Tactics, Tiny Epic Western, did I say Kingdoms? They have a lot. They have a lot of Tiny Epic stuff. But what do they not have? What do they not have and you wish they did? So I got two ideas. So we're going to throw this down and we're going to see what develops with these two ideas. All right, everyone. I'll see you down at the table.
I've talked about quite a few of the Tiny Epic games here on Tabletop Takeout Tuesday, and there are so many of them. One of the things I enjoy about these games is the different genres, the different themes that they seem to step in and fill. There's no shortage of it, and they keep adding new and different ideas and concepts to what they want to put a theme together for. And I really appreciate that. But they haven't done everything, obviously. And I was thinking of a few ideas that I would love to see by Gameland Games for the Tiny Epic series. And I really want to know what everyone else's idea is. You know, whether it's just a title, or whether you have an idea for what the game would encompass. What would it be like? Whatever it is, throw it down in the comments. We get some thread going on this. Now, me, myself, and I'm sure my friends that have been watching for a while, this might not come as a surprise that I'll say this, although I think the second one, if you know me, might. So the first idea I had, of course, Tiny Epic Supers! Really, I've been thinking of what they could possibly do for a superhero game in the Tiny Epic verse, so to speak. And I think I overthought it for a while. I think it's going to be a little bit easier than I was, because I've been thinking about this for a while. So one thing I was thinking about is, because they're superheroes and they have two identities, their super heroic identity as well as their secret ID, so to speak, I think they need to incorporate that into the game. Much like Level 7 Omega Protocol or Firefly Adventures Brigands and Browncoats does with the different stances that you can take, which will grant you different abilities because of your readiness, so to speak, because of that stance. Use that same concept, but instead of an actual stance, it's basically, are you in superhero mode or are you in kid photographer mode? You know, your civilian mode, secret ID. But because of this, they're gonna have their own sort of bonuses and negatives. Things will affect one that would not affect another. Like maybe the plot of the villain is attacking civilians, and you happen to be in your civilian identity. Well, then he's not attacking Captain Cape or whoever you are. He's attacking Denny Drag, whatever your civilian name is, and you just happen to have to deal with that. So that would get you some victory points, and things that you do in your super identity would get you victory points. Now, what you're doing, though, I think should be up to you, hero or villain, or some sort of gray vigilante, so to speak. And they would have mission cards. How about this for a weird idea, something Game Games hasn't done yet? What about an app that will have mission cards on it? That would save space in the box. But these mission cards can be resolved either as a hero or as a villain. Yeah, right? Now we're opening this game up. Now we've just doubled the concept of this game. And maybe bring back item meeples. You know, so you can have the meeples with the capes, or their armor, or their special weapon represented. That would look really, really cool. You're going to gain your victory points through doing your super or villainous missions, through civilian acts, with the mission cards being completed. These are all ways that you're going to amass your victory points to get to the end and eventually win. But I would also want to see, since you have the option in this concept I have of hero or villain, doing it either way you wanted, is that there should be some sort of virtue tracker, right? And each player would have it, be part of your player board, would have a virtue tracker on it. And as you do, you know, positive or negative actions, that's going to show by increasingly worse or increasingly nicer and better newspaper headlines. That kind of gives it a nice thematic feel. All right. Are you familiar with Tiny Epic Tactics? Are you familiar with Firefly Adventures, Brigands, and Browncoats? I would like to see them do this again like they did in Tactics. I would like them to see. I would like to see a sort of buildable city street or something with the inlay boxes that you could pull out and become part of the board itself. That would be really super cool. I would also actually like to see. Now, their Kickstarters always do great. What about something special for this Kickstarter, since it has to do with superheroes, where the Kickstarter stretch goals are building up to an expansion? A second box, an expansion box, right there from the get-go. And it's going to have extra city buildings that can be combined with the first one, so you can make really tall buildings. A couple of stories tall, maybe four stories tall between the two boxes. I mean, that would look epic, would it not? So these are my ideas of why I think it would be a good concept to see a tiny, epic supers game. Well, I did say I have two. Now, the other one might surprise you a little bit, since I've become very, very particular about diving into this theme, and this thematic universe, this genre. And that's Tiny Epic Cthulhu. Generally, I do say that there's enough. And not that there's just enough, but there's not enough out of all of the enough that are different enough in a lot of their base concepts. So taking one of the lesser concepts, so it's been used a few times within the last couple of years, but take the concept that each player, you're not playing the investigators like usual. Each player is playing a cult leader. And you pick your particular board, and you'll have sort of asymmetrical powers based on what kind of madness you your cult suffers from, right? And you're going to be gaining and losing during the course of the game disciples or fanatics. You're going to be gaining them through the ability to convert sort of like everyday people, civilians, muggles, convert them to your way of madness. Or you could just kidnap other cultists. Yeah, you kidnap your buddy's cultists. Now, you'd also maybe be losing disciples, not only because people are kidnapping them on you, but maybe you want something, you need something. Well, you eventually do. You want to raise the Great Cthulhu, and I'll get to that idea in a moment. But maybe you want a spell that will help you. Well, you're going to have to sacrifice people. If you start sacrificing the civilians walking down the street, questions get asked. So you sacrifice your nutty disciples, the fanatics. And that will gain you a certain amount of victory points and the ability to use those victory points to not only work towards victory, but they would also become a commodity where you could try to buy spells. Another thing the players can do to each other while they're amassing their own power base is sort of like tricking investigators to go raid the other cultists' hideouts, their headquarters. And you could send them, and they might be successful, they might not. It'll all depend on the amount of disciples they have and maybe any unique powers that particular madness gives them, items, things like that will all mitigate what the chances are that a certain amount of investigators sent to a certain cult will be able to either eradicate them or maybe take out enough of their numbers that it's going to mess up their victory point plan. Now, these spells you're acquiring, you would be using to summon these Lovecraftian horrors to A, send out to the other cultists and try to destroy them, but also to raise a sort of madness level in the world, or at least the city around you, and you can summon them and then just discard them. And that just means they ran out along the countryside, and now the madness level of the countryside has just risen up. Now, as you're accumulating these madness points, you're going to be getting bonuses and maybe even growth of existing abilities or new abilities. But you can't go too far. There's a tipping point. The least amount of madness points you have, the least amount of power you have. But if you go too far, and that'll be a balance by the number of disciples you have, which madness you have, maybe you have items to help control or mitigate that. But if you go too far, then you lose too much power. Then you end up losing all your disciples. Maybe thematically you've just gone crazy and just killed them. You didn't even sacrifice them. You just killed them because of the madness. So that's really going to hurt you. You lose victory points. Very interesting. And the last interesting idea I have for this is the opposite of how I ended off the other idea, Tiny Epic Supers. The opposite. Instead of a board that builds up, a feature with the way the board and I guess the tray is, or the trays, so that there's a pit. And inside this pit is a larger Cthulhu meeple. And you are trying to eventually raise him. Now, if you were using maybe item meeples, which I don't really see a need for in this game, but if you were, then maybe this larger item meeple Cthulhu, you would be adding his tentacles, his wings, different aspects. So when you get enough of them added, then the last thing is to raise him. Like I said, I'm a little bit burnt out on Cthulhu games, but for a Tiny Epic game, I think that sounds pretty cool. So if you had a chance to come up with an idea for the next Tiny Epic game, what would your idea be? I'm your buddy Big John and G for Two Gun Pixie Presents Legendary Gaming, and my friends, I am out of here.